what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it. CBS Sports came out with an article. Top 5 wide receiver groups in college football entering 2024. Number 5 on this list, Ole Miss. Oh, wow, of course. They had, they got Trey Harris, who was already excellent in 2023, 54 catches, 985, 8 touchdowns. They had Louisville transfer Jordan Watkins, who had some pretty good numbers last year. They get Antoine Wells Jr. from South Carolina. They get a 6'5", 255 tight end and Prescorn, who we all remember very well.
That's Juice Wells is what he goes by.
I was wondering why I didn't recognize the name. I was like, I'm so confused. Where's Juice?
James Madison, South Carolina, now Ole Miss,
So number 5 on this list, Ole Miss. Surprised that Ole Miss is this high up?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They got a really good receiver room, and they retained the players that were there a year ago that were really good, and then you add guys like Juice Wells. When healthy, he's a dynamic playmaker.
And they are including tight ends in this group as well. Number 4 on this list, Missouri. Of course, we know Theo Weiss Jr. and Luther Burden's kind of all you need to know. But they got Mookie Cooper, who's been productive in his 3 seasons. Some people think that their tight end Brett Norfleet could be a name that you'll know by the end of this football season. 6'7" Norfleet is, so a pretty massive dude there. But yeah, I mean, really, this is just Luther Burden and Theo Weiss mainly here, or Theo Weiss.
That's really all you need.
Yeah,
I mean, those 2 players are really, really good. Coop's okay. He's a nice 3, and he'll make some plays. But I mean, that's a 2-headed monster that can go up almost against any in the country.
So Texas checking in at number 3. And this is after losing a couple of elite guys to the NFL draft because they bring in Isaiah Bond. They also bring in Amari Niblack, a tight end from Alabama. But I guess the weapons that they're going to be bringing to bear people think are really good, but are they proven for Texas?
No, I wouldn't have them that high on the list.
It's weird because LSU, as you'll see, not on this list, honorable mention, right? But I'm cool with that because I'm like, it's a lot of unproven guys. I think the potential's huge. The talent is huge. But Kyron Lacey needs to go prove that he's a true one. And C.J. Daniels needs to prove he can be on the same page. But, I kind of feel a lot of the same about Texas, and yet here they sit at number 3.
That's high. Because even their maybe go-to guy and their biggest weapon that they got out of the portal still in Bond, he's had moments, but he's not taking over
consistent. No,
a 5-game stretch, and so that's a little too high. I would flip Ole Miss and Texas.
Yeah,
and I actually probably wouldn't have Texas in this group, but I would have Ole Miss higher than Texas.
They got Ohio State number 2, which of course Ohio State always is turning out great receivers, and it seems like even the true freshman Jeremiah Smith is going to be very, very good. They do a thing at Ohio State where when you're no longer a freshman in their eyes, whatever, they take your black stripe off your helmet. Jeremiah Smith got it removed in record time, so be on the lookout for him. And you got Emeka Buka still there at tight end. No surprise in Ohio State. I did not realize this number 1 team. I did not realize their receiver room was this good, Jake. Oregon, the Oregon Ducks, even after losing Troy Franklin, according to CBS, have the best receiver room in the entire country.
Oregon, Oregon's going to be in the college football playoff. I can almost guarantee it. Their roster is stacked. They get Dylan Gabriel to come over from Oklahoma, which doesn't feel like it's getting talked about enough as one of the better quarterbacks in the country. I know we talked about quarterbacks yesterday. Dan Lanning and his mentality, staying at Oregon, not leaving like Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal, saying, no, this is where I want to be. They head into the Big Ten, where you got Ohio State, obviously, but I like Oregon as much as any other team in the Big Ten. I have them and Ohio State kind of on the same level right now. So, I mean, Oregon's done some really, really nice things to add to their roster.
Yeah, remember, FPI loves Oregon as well. So Troy Franklin's off the NFL, but they get Tez Johnson back, who actually set the single-season program record last year. He had 86 catches. Also had 10 touchdowns, over 1,100 yards. So he's obviously great. But they have that, look, Treshaun Holden, Gary Bryant Jr., they've got some depth there. But Evan Stewart is the big name to pay attention to here as he decided to leave Texas A&M. He was very good at Texas A&M, and now he's going to go to what should be a much better, much more explosive offense for him in Eugene.
More potential there. He's got to meet what looks like the potential of being a star receiver. I think he's been a good receiver. I don't think he's lived up exactly to his hype coming out of high school. And now Oregon's got the challenge of trying to get all of that out of Stewart.
So, again, LSU not on this top 5 list. I guess the question becomes, should they be?
Yeah, if Texas is on this list, I would certainly have LSU on this list.
So you would take out Texas and put LSU at 5?
I would.
Right now, the honorable mentions are Georgia, which I hate that. I don't understand that at all. Actually. I continue, a lot of the college football media continues to try to gaslight me into saying that Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett are great. I don't see it. Yeah. They got to prove it to me first. Last year, they beat Kentucky, and all of a sudden I got PB and Aaron Murray on snaps, and they're like talking about how explosive Georgia's weapons are. I'm like, guys, the receivers have like 300 yards apiece. What are we talking about here?
Dominic Lovett hasn't been elite since he left Missouri.
No. So, whatever. They're on that list. LSU with Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton Jr., Mason Taylor. They actually don't even list C.J. Daniels here. Miami, Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, Samuel Broughton. That is a pretty good receiving core. They have Oklahoma on here. I don't recognize these guys. Nick Anderson, Jalil Farouk, and Deion Burks. And then they got Kansas on here. Remember, the FBI loves them some Kansas. Maybe the slight favorite in the Big 12 with Lawrence Arnold, Quentin Skinner, and Luke Grimm. Maybe I'm too close to it, but yeah, I feel like LSU's the best out of those honorable mentions. And again, what's the great difference between LSU and Texas in this scenario? I suppose it's that maybe Texas's unknowns were higher ranked recruits. But, I don't know. I've seen pretty similar things out of Kyron Lacey and Isaiah Bond at this point, both expected to be the ones. Maybe it's that they think Quinn Ewers is going to be better set up to take advantage of them. Only time will tell. But, yeah, I think a little motivation for this LSU receiver room, as we discussed the other day. LSU actually, objectively, quantifiably, wide receiver U, as there have been more LSU players to make starts at wide receiver in the NFL over the past 10 years than any other school.
So of the group of receivers that we expect to see in the fall, you mentioned a couple. I mean, you got Aaron Anderson, Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton Jr., C.J. Daniels, Xavion Thomas coming over from Mississippi State, Kyle Parker, and Shelton Sampson, a couple of young guys that were highly touted coming out of high school. You mentioned Mason Taylor, but also Tre'Davious Green. That's a 5-star tight end.
Yeah.
If we're talking about adding the tight end to this list, I expect him to have a role on this team. Now, It's probably not as a Y. It's probably going to be as an F, and it's probably going to be like 2018 Jamar Chase. If you remember what that looked like. He came in the red zone, basically. Mm-hmm. And he starred, in certain games because it's like, hey, you're more athletic than the corner. We're going to just throw it up to you, and we're going to let you go get it. And, look, when you were between the 20s, you didn't see a lot of Jamar Chase. They played, but he wasn't the go-to target. You get in the red area in 2018. We're not talking about 19. We're talking about 2018. Then that's when you put him in, and he's a freshman. He's learning the playbook. Hey, learn this. This is where you're going to help us win games.
I'll see your Jamar Chase, and I'll raise you a little 2020 Rick Gilbert. Remember that?
Yeah.
Beginning of the year. Now, as we know, a guy who maybe would go on to kind of struggle to grasp the playbook fully and find that success mainly for off-the-field reasons. But, again, you gave him a vertical slice of the playbook, and in the limited action that you saw him in, he was fantastic, and it was mainly in the red zone. And Tre'Davious may not be the overwhelming, all-time best-rated recruit like Rick Gilbert was, but he's also not that far away. Like, he is a bona fide 5-star number 1 tight end. And so, yeah, I agree with you. That could be huge. And especially with a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, who we believe is going to take advantage of the tight end room more. And that's been a focus of the offseason, taking advantage of Mason Taylor and, by extension, Tre'Davious Green. Yeah, that's a very good call. I think he could be a red zone weapon come this fall. And coaches have positions that they do well. And we've said Brian Kelly does very well with offensive line. You continue to see that. And really, a lot of that's Brad Davis. But he also has a huge history of turning out great NFL tight ends. And Mason Taylor looks like he'll take a step forward this year. And yeah, we'll get the exciting beginning of Trey'Dez Green. So I love this LSU receiver room. I guess it's just too many unknowns for CBS to go ahead and put him on this top 5. But I think they, you could argue that they deserve to be there. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.